Hey cutie. Welcome back, or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Laura. Hi, hello, welcome. It's been a very long time since I filmed a No Pan Left Behind update. I have so many palettes left in front of me. So many palettes. If you don't know, a No Pan Left Behind is when you take a palette and you are trying to touch every single shade within that palette, and I'm doing that across my whole collection. I really like this No Pan Left Behind. It really does give me the opportunity to use my whole collection, but it also is a little bit of, it's a little challenging. I don't have like the largest palette collection like as it comes with YouTube and like beauty space. However, I feel like I have a lot of palettes in my collection. And a lot of them have lots of shades in them. It's a challenge to touch all of the pans of eyeshadow in my collection, but it's also very rewarding when I do hit the No Pan Left Behind goal. Coming back on YouTube and filming more, I have definitely put the pedal to the metal in some of my usage. So I'm really excited, and I'm really hoping to knock No Pan Left Behind out sooner than I did last year, because I did complete No Pan Left Behind. My only issue is I have a lot of single shadows that I still need to use. But the palettes are taking priority. You'll have some pictures that I doodled that I've been kind of filling in the colors to represent what months I used each shade in, so you kind of can see where the usage has come from that way. So I have my March palettes first. And first, oh my gosh, I don't have these in any particular order. In March, I ended up using my Flower Moon palette, this guy here, completely in No Pan Left Behind. This was something that was in my project level up, and this was my level 3 palette, and I just kind of stopped doing that project right now. I was very overwhelmed, and with the fact that I'm trying to touch so much of my collection, having too many eyeshadow projects is very overwhelming for me, and it's taken a little lesson in my own self in like using my makeup to kind of realize that. I really do like this palette. The shimmers are absolutely gorgeous. Definitely more like spring leaning to me. I say that, but I also definitely lean like fall with this palette too. So I need to reach for this one as well. Then I did also No Pan Left Behind my Camel palette. This is just a mini, not a mini, but like 5-pan palette from Natasha Denona. My packaging on this is broken, which really annoys me. It's fine. It's totally fine. But I have No Pan Left Behind this as well. This was easy, like a work one day at work, I could finish that one. I also ended up doing a No Pan Left Behind in my mini nude palette. Now there's not that many shades left in this palette. This is also broken. All of these packaging is broken. I did finish this shade here. This was Lumino. I also finished Bronzage. However, it's kind of a little cheap. Oop. It's kind of a little, not like cheaty, but I did drop this palette and a good portion of the shades shattered. So like, yes, it wasn't all me using up the shades, but I still did finish up what was left in those rather than just like declutter it. So I'm not feeling too sad about that. And this is definitely something that I would like to try and finish and like get out of my collection at some point. I also did a No Pan Left Behind on my Ninhydrin palette. This is the Adept Cosmetics Ninhydrin. Definitely leans more fall in my opinion, but it's still a very beautiful palette. And then I'm not gonna hold it up because you will have just seen me talk about it in my Pan That Palette update, but I did also hit a No Pan Left Behind in my Going Coconuts palette. You guys know what that looks like. So I finished No Pan Left Behind in 5 palettes in the month of March, which was very exciting. That was a good month for me. So in April, I hit No Pan Left Behind in the Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette, this guy here, which is such a beautiful palette. Definitely a like spring and like honestly kind of like a winter palette in my opinion, with like some of the cooler tones. I also hit No Pan Left Behind in the Too Faced Pinker Times Ahead palette. This is just such a cute palette to me. I really, really like this palette. Definitely was not one that anyone talked about. I kind of bought it on a whim. April vibes. So I really liked reaching for this in April, and I was very happy. Ooh, that closure is so strong. I also No Pan Left Behind the Fun Size palette by Sugar Pill. This went really well with the Pinker Times Ahead palette because it does have some of the colorful mattes in it, so I could reach for this with some of the shimmers from the Pinker Times Ahead palette. So this is not a palette I really can reach for a like standalone. Not my favorite anymore. I definitely feel like I reach for more like neutral kind of shadows. I feel like in my videos I wear a lot of color because this is where I can wear a lot of color. My battery is about to die, but I'm hoping I can get through my last April palette, which was the Pickle palette by Sugar Drizzle. A lot of these April palettes I actually started to use in March because I was trying to use a lot of my green shadows in March. I always try using a lot of green in March. Moving to March, we finished No Pan Left Behind in 5 palettes. First one being the Feral palette. Now, I do have a couple shades finished in this palette, which is very exciting. Now, I will say this is not my favorite palette. It's just kind of like a jumbled color story. This was a gift that Haley had sent me a couple years ago, and I'm really, really grateful for it. But if I were to buy a Feral or like a Menagerie palette now, it wouldn't be this one. I don't know how I feel about this one anymore. This one's kind of like one that's on my chopping block. Again, I'm not going to show this one because I just talked about it in my Pan That Palette update. The Pretty Guardian palette by Colourpop. I did also No Pan Left Behind that guy. This was a really good and exciting one. I No Pan Left Behind my Ice Cream Dream palette in May. I started it in April, got like half the shades, and then wrapped up the remaining like 15 or so in the month of May, which, man, what a behemoth of a palette to get through. I love the shimmers in this. They're very, very soft, light, like lightweight kind of shimmers. Not my favorite shimmer formula, but like if you don't like heavy shimmers, you would really like these. And I forget how I can get so many neutral eye looks within this palette because when I think of this palette, I think of all of the colorful shades. I don't really think about the neutrals, but I really can get such great everyday work looks within this palette and still being able to lean into the colorful shades within this. He also did a No Pan Left Behind in the Plain Jane Remastered palette. This is such a spring palette in my opinion. It is absolutely stunning. There's definitely some deeper based multi-chromes within this palette, but I like those on my lower lash line, so I don't really mind that honestly, but I do really like just how ethereal and just duochrome these shades are. There are some multi-chromes in here, but they're predominantly, like, I would say more duochrome. Adept isn't my favorite formula when it comes to shimmers or mattes, honestly. They're a little more emollient, so they don't stay on my lids quite as well. The Sugar Drizzle Sugar Dreams palette, I did No Pan Left Behind in May as well. Again, another very like springtime ethereal kind of palette in my opinion. This is just so much fun. I love the shade Shooting Stars here, Candy Clouds, and Let's Eat Cake. So pretty. June was a very good month for my No Pan Left Behind. The first on my list was the Natasha Denona Safari palette. This is an all matte palette, so I really did have to kind of halt my use on my Pan That palette shades and really lean into these shades at the time. I really like this palette. This was my first Natasha Denona palette. I had been pining after this for years and years and years and finally bit the bullet when it was getting discontinued. And I really like this palette in my collection. I really like I know the packaging is super squeaky, but I really do like this one, the color of the packaging. I like that it's a little bit like softer, and like the other packagings are so shiny and it's hard to like show them sometimes, and I just feel like they get really grubby really quick. Neither here nor there, but this was actually the next palette on my list. This is the Sunrise palette by Natasha Denona. This was a really beautiful one for June, I thought. As like we get into the summer months, I just kind of really wanted to wear these kinds of shades a lot. I don't give myself enough permission to use this palette because the color story is a little intimidating to me, but whenever I reach for it and use it, I really like the shades. It's just like I have to get over my own mental block. And then last Natasha Denona palette I hit No Pan Left Behind is my Green Brown palette. This is such a favorite. This was another one I had been pining after for years and years. I bought it on a bundle with the purple blue palette. I decluttered that other palette. This was really the only one I should have bought at the time, but I really love this palette and I need to give myself more permission to use my Natasha Denona palettes. I also did hit No Pan Left Behind in my Bare Necessities palette. Again, another one you heard me talk about in my Pan That palette and have seen kind of some of the usage. So you know what it looks like. You guys are no strangers to that. My last palette within the month of June is my Unearthly Cosmetics All I Ever Wanted Volume 2 palette. This one is just so pretty. This is my preferred. I don't know. Out of the two, I feel like this might be my preferred one just because of the array of more green and yellow shades. I just reach for those kind of colors more. I just really like this palette. It was very nice to use this in conjunction with the Safari palette that was all mattes and topping other shades within the month with this palette. I really did enjoy this, and again, I think this is my preferred out of the two All I Ever Wanted palettes from Unearthly. In the month of June, I hit No Pan Left Behind on 5 palettes. So in July, 5 palettes. Very happy about that. No Pan Left Behind my VR Neon palette. This is a very summer palette in my opinion. Clearly, we have a lot of really bright shades within that palette, so something I really only gravitate towards within the warmer months of the year. I almost feel like maybe I should roll these Kaleidos shades out of these palettes and just include them in my singles collection, because I feel like I don't reach for this like packaging anymore. The second one, VR Neon palette here. Very happy about this one too. This was more like fall palette in my opinion, but this is one of my absolute favorite color stories in a palette. I love olive green eyeshadow in golds, and I think that it just pairs super well on the eyes. I really wish they made these Futurism palettes still. I have not tried any of the new formulas. I will say the Futurism formulas were all I've tried from Kaleidos. If the formulas differ within the new range, I might not like it as much, but the Futurism palettes, just loved them. Such a beautiful matte formula. Absolutely loved it. Moving to a Natasha Denona palette, Miss Zendo here. I know this is not everyone's cup of tea, but I really like this palette. I could do without the 2 blues, in all fairness. I just, like, these have no point, in my opinion, in this palette. I plowed through them for the sake of No Pan Left Behind, but I feel like those might be shades I end up decluttering out of the palette. The Cream to Matte formula is just so beautiful, in my opinion. Now, a palette that I have decided to no longer consider in my palette collection after No Pan Left Behinding it again is the YSL Color Clutch in Marrakech. Now, this was a gift from my husband, very, very sweet. It was nice to test and try the YSL eyeshadow formula and learn it's not for me. I've just kind of decided that I don't want to get rid of this outright because I think this is just such like a bougie ass thing. So this is kind of just moved to decor in my background, so I like looking at it. Then the last palette I reached for in the month of July, I reached for it as singles actually. This is the Clionadh Dragon Fruit palette. I have the old packaging that is dusted, busted kind of thing, but the shades are magnetic within this palette, so you can take them out, and I think they did come out with cardboard packaging for this palette, which much more recommend. This is so cute and very like 90s aesthetic. Love the nod to the inflatable couches that this makes me feel like. August, I said it before, I was very sick within August and I really just didn't reach for makeup. I did it at the very beginning of the month and then at the very end of the month, or so really just like the first couple days and the last couple days of the month. Otherwise, I was very sick and just not feeling it for makeup. So I, at the beginning of the month, hit No Pan Left Behind in my BH Cosmetics Avocado Toast. I definitely know the formula on this is not quite there anymore. Shades just, it's not my favorite formula anymore, and I feel like I need to get my use out of this and give myself more permission to use this palette than I have in the past, because I know it's going to start going off pretty soon and the pans aren't super deep. I also hit No Pan Left Behind in my Natasha Denona Yucca palette. This is such a beautiful palette, and I was so happy to just give myself permission to use this. It is so, so pretty. I absolutely love this palette. All the shimmers are kind of similar, in my opinion, but I'm not mad because it's a type of shadow that I really like, that kind of flip to it. They all have a very intense gold flip, so they all kind of end up looking gold-ish in some capacity on the eyes. But I do like it because they all have like slightly different undertones, slightly different ships. But again, very, very beautiful. Really like this palette. Wonderful color story. You'll see I have a type because the Moon Shroom palette, which came into my life relatively recently, has a very similar color story, and it's one that I really love. I absolutely love these kinds of tones. I love these warm mustards. I love olive greens. I just really, really like this palette. A lot more of these shimmers are a little bit darker, deeper than I would personally like. Fun Guy here is pretty, but it's a very deep bronze, like olive bronze kind of shade. Same even with Spores, it's a deeper kind of bronze gold kind of shade. So I feel like maybe we didn't need two very similar shades like that in the palette. And like even some of these yellows, I feel like maybe we didn't need all of the yellows. I love them all, don't get me wrong. And the formula on this is absolutely beautiful. This is my first Lunar Beauty palette, and honestly, I'm very impressed with the formula of this, where I'm thinking maybe of getting one of the neutral palettes in the future. I have a lot in my collection, and I'm pretty negative in my eye bank right now. If you've missed it, I am very negative after bringing the Moon Shroom palette into my collection, so I'm in no rush to make any purchases, but maybe in November for my birthday, I will purchase another Lunar Beauty palette. But I do have some other stats that I kind of want to touch over within the scope of my No Pan Left Behind, because they do fit the theme of what this project is. So within the year 2024, I've had 49 palettes in my collection. 4 palettes I've decluttered. One of those palettes I did not touch the No Pan Left Behind. I knew I wasn't planning on keeping it. Why put the effort into it? So I parted with 4 palettes. I've hit 38 palettes within the year for a No Pan Left Behind. So I kind of am kicking myself that I didn't just hit No Pan Left Behind with that other palette that left my collection, but it's fine. So as of September 1st, I only have 10 palettes in my collection that still have yet to have No Pan Left Behind. If I really focus in on this project, I know I can hit 6 palettes No Pan Left Behind this month, because again, I've already made some progress within the month, and I'm just really happy about using my collection, and I really, really, really would like to try to at least get all of my palettes finished by October. I'm on a good track to do that this month. But that does not include these big behemoth palettes that have my single eyeshadows in them. And that's kind of the part that scares me the most, is these single shadows, because I've been putting a lot of my focus on my palettes so far this year, and I know maybe it doesn't seem like it because I haven't been talking to you guys this year that much, but I have actually been focusing on my Pan That palette a lot, and then my No Pan Left Behind. Those have been my 2 main projects, and again, it's been mostly my palettes that I've been focusing on. So I do have some shades within my Clionadh palettes that I still have yet to touch, but I have 89 Clionadh shades. This is not a brag by any means. I have 89 of these suckers, and I still have to touch 29 of them within the year to hit that No Pan Left Behind. Most of those are the lower half of the palette, so my intimidated shades. So I don't reach for purples all too often, and that's predominantly what I have left in this palette. So who's ready to see some purple eyeshadow looks in the coming months to try to No Pan Left Behind those? Within my round singles, I do have 75 round singles. I did declutter 2 very dark green shades that I just wasn't going to reach for. They were undertones that I wasn't really keen on, so I just decluttered them out of my collection. So I have 73 pans of eyeshadow left in my collection at this point, and I have 21 more to touch before I completely No Pan Left Behind this palette. All in all, within my collection, I have 110 shadows left to touch in some capacity, whether that's in palettes and singles. It's a culmination. So as of today when I'm filming this, I have 60 remaining shades in my palettes to use. I'm not going to tell you what palettes they come out of. That's if you know, you know, if you don't, you don't kind of thing, which I'm assuming you guys don't because you're not in my real life. And then the 29 remaining with my Cliona and my 21 remaining with my round singles. I have 110 shades remaining. I definitely feel like I can make a lot of progress within this project. I have 4 months to go, 3.5 months to go before the end of 2024. I really would love to see this project done and wrapped up by November. I really would like to give myself free reign on my collection within December. So I'm really hoping to just have this done. Let me know if you want to see any content using, I know Sophie Alexandra did this last year where she had some content where she just did like random palette bingos and shade bingos with all of the remaining shades. Let me know if you want to see stuff like that. I've been just really trying to layer a lot of shadows, and that's how I'm getting through my No Pan Left Behind. But that is it for this video. It was a lot of ground to cover. I hope you guys are doing well. You'll have to let me know if you're doing a No Pan Left Behind, where you're at. I love talking to you in the comments, and I will see you guys in my next video. And until then, I hope you're staying healthy, sane, and safe. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye. You better